America's foreign policy in disarray, Europe's neighbourhood policy has become ever more important. Joining me in the studio today to discuss neighbourhood policy is Petras Auštrevičius, Lithuanian MEP from the Liberals, Helmut Scholz, a German MEP with United Left, and Sandra Kalniete, Latvian MEP with the centre-right. Welcome to all of you. Sandra, let me start with you. The Eastern neighbourhood is probably one of the most complex issues that Europe really has to get its hands dirty with. What's the direction that we're going to take with the Balkans? Are we leaning towards a carrot approach or a stick approach at the moment?
I would say both, carrot and stick, because our period of reflection after the 2004 enlargement heavily affected situation in Western Balkans, and now to bring them back on the level where they were in their political will, we need to use both.
The Maltese Presidency has been the time when the Balkans seems to have woken up in the consciousness of Europeans. Do you think that we're really awake at the moment, or are we still sleepwalking towards a potential disaster?
Well, I'm sure that we do not realize, the whole complexity of issues which is in the Western Balkans. Those countries were given a certain promise, a vision, in fact an invitation to become member states, but from my understanding, the process of reforms was stuck. One thing which should be noticed, very recently the Russian ambassador to the European Union said there is an alternative for Euro integration. So it means that, it's not just empty words. I see a strategy to keep Western Balkans away from joining Euro back.
Helmut Scholz, are you concerned about Russian influence in the Balkans, that it's not just a strategic game of influence, but actually they would like to see some more disturbance, even perhaps some conflict there?
I wouldn't reduce the whole Eastern neighbourhood policy or the enlargement policy, when we are speaking about the West Balkans, and it is an enlargement policy in a certain way, so that's a different approach and we have to be very precise and very clearly. I would not reduce it to the Russian influence or Russian interest. The complexity of what Mr. Auštrevičius just said is embedded in the transformation process in these countries after 1890, and the whole process and the unfinished transition has given birth to the problems we are dealing today within these societies, within this country. So
How do you finish the transition
Russia
then?
has an interest, the European Union has an interest, Macedonia has an interest. So we have to finally agree that if we are saying, yes, policy is also interest-driven, that we have to recognize these interests and to find a way how to handle, how to deal with this.
Okay, Turkey, as you mentioned, has an interest here as well. How do you manage Turkey when it's become so destabilized today? How do you factor it in as a positive influence in the Balkans?
I would say that Turkey still is there, and it will be there where it is geographically located. And we, European Union and Turkey, we have much more in common than behind the harsh words we sometimes realize. Rhetorics, what we are using currently, does not help to create a good policy lines to implement. Turkey, of course, feels that Balkans is its historical part of its mythology, and they want to exert their influence, particularly in the countries where Islam is present.
Can that be a positive influence, given the state that Erdogan has brought his own country to?
I would say that yes and no. Because Erdogan brought economically rather good results in his country, but if we look to the current situation after referendum, politically his vision is backward, it's not forward. And that is not what I would wish for Western Balkans.
Let me ask about Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron was very clear with President Putin this week, and the rule of law seems to have risen in people's estimation again this week as well with Macron's presidency. Do you think that Ukraine will find stability as a consequence of this, or do you think the Russians will take a harsher line to make their point felt as we go forward?
First of all, I want to congratulate Ukraine with today's final ratification in the Dutch Senate. I mean, it's a great event. Ukraine as a country needs a certainty, a stability, and a possibility to implement all the reforms. But you're completely right. I don't believe that Russia has a plan to let Ukraine go as it wishes. Not at all. From Russian point of view, Ukraine constitutes a great threat, so to say, a threat for Russian elites as long as Ukraine is successful with reforms. Imagine, I mean, if reforms are implemented, corruption is cut, economic growth is back, and population feels real results from the economic reforms, what Mr. Putin will have to say to Russians? I mean, country full of national resources, of imagination about its greatness, but nothing to deliver. So that's why I see a great moment for Ukraine to deliver, not to look back, look forward, but to be stuck and in good sense really perform on association agenda we have with Ukraine.
Okay. Helmut Scholz, has the Macron presidency shifted Europe's neighbourhood policy with it?
I think France finally has taken a very clear standpoint in more clearer defining this neighborhood policy. If he really already shifted, we have to see, because with interest I heard your words now that you say, yes, Ukraine is delivering. But if you are looking into the details, the social reality in the country is still very bad. The legal system is not really already finished in its reformation and renewal. So I think we have to be very clear in the next months, years ahead of us, that the conditioning also of the support from the European Union, because we have also to explain to our citizens, to our voters, what we are doing in the relationship with other countries, in particular with Ukraine, is bringing results. And if we see that there are a permanent process, and I hope the reforms in Ukraine for the better, for the citizens, are really successful, then we can say, yes, Macron has also influenced this process.
What makes me always angry when I hear that Ukraine, when we look in details, does not deliver. Just Ukraine has war on its territory, which costs enormous money. Secondly, part of its territory is annexed. Thirdly, it's only since 2014 when Ukraine is beginning to reform. It's a huge country. Even in a small country like mine, it took years for us to bring us up to integration to European Union, and we still have vestiges of post-Soviet period on our soil. And we, here in the Union, we expect that they will do it in 3 years and will be like Germany or like France. It takes generations.
But that I haven't said. Let's
of
go
course
into
you
the
didn't,
detail.
but in general there are people
if
who
you
say
speak,
this.
for example, with trade unionists in the central region of Ukraine, and not in Kiev alone, if you speak about people who are living in the rural areas, producing in the agriculture sector, if you speak with them on the daily life, what they can live on. So I mean, this is a problem. Of course, there is this conflict. There are territories
going on, that macroeconomics
but
gives the result in much longer period. And you mentioned trade unions. Trade unions in Ukraine still are under Soviet-style trade unions, which never were real trade unions.
There are very new trade unions, independent, which has been established, and I have spoken with them.
Of course,
so, I mean,
this you know.
We have 1 minute left.
I have to speak about the citizens of the country.
One final subject is to close. On Syria, Macron said, use chemical weapons, we're going to attack immediately. This is a hardline policy we haven't seen before. But if we look beyond that, do you think we're going to see Europe get involved militarily in Syria? Sandra, quick answer.
We have no resources for that.
Okay.
It's diplomacy and political solution.
Petras Auštrevičius?
I think the Assad regime overstepped a very thick red line. killing own people by massive destruction weapons. And I think it's a matter of NATO involvement, and if EU member states, as NATO member states, would go for this, protecting population, first of all, protecting population.
Macron's not going to wait for NATO though, is he?
Well, I mean, I don't believe it might be easily assembled EU kind of pool or group of willing. I think in any case it will be under the wings of NATO.
Okay. Helmut Scholz?
I would say that would be the wrong option to go militarily there. We have to stick to the political diplomatic solutions, as complicated as it seems today, but military involvement of the European Union would increase the problems in the region.
That's all for the presidency today. I'm Brian Maguire.